It was close. It was boring, but it was a win. The Houston Texans are now 500 on the season.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battered Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around. To my everydayers from the Himalayas, thank you for making the Locked On Texans your first listen of the day, and also for making the Locked On Podcast Network now the number one sports podcast network in the nation. And I'm your Texans football analyst and credential media member, John Hickman. We're going to dive into the confidence level right now in the Houston Texans. They got it done. They're now at 500. Friday, I talked about what would a win indicate. It indicates they fought back. They went through adversity, and they got to a spot to where now they truly control their own destiny. Got Buffalo Thursday night. So we'll dive into that to close out the show. Just observations from things that made it hard for Houston to win the game. The game should have been it shouldn't have been as close as it was. It should have not come down to a field goal by a newly signed kicker who's been in Houston for 2 weeks. Though we know any given Sunday is a real thing in the NFL. I get it. It shouldn't have been that close. But it was, so we'll dive into that. But just looking at the Houston Texans pulling it out late is exactly where I want to start today's podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And for Houston, another good day from Davis Mills. 41 attempts, 25 completions, 275 yards, 1 touchdown. He did get sacked 4 times, and that's somewhat of what I'll talk about on today's show. Was not a good run game for the Houston Texans. 75 total yards on the ground, 3.3 yards per carry. But when I look at how Houston got to their victory, their lone touchdown of the game, and they were in the red zone a couple of times, right? Looking at the stats for Houston, Houston got to the red zone 3 times, only came away with 1 touchdown. The red zone issues continue to be a problem. Continues to be an issue, and I have a reason why I think so. But that 1 red zone touchdown came from Nico Collins, 9 catches on 10 targets, 92 yards, 1 touchdown. We also got to look at Jaylin Higgins, the rookie, who D'Amico Ryans talked about. Hey, the rookie nameplate is off. Jaylin Higgins answered the call. 4 catches, 55 yards, nearly 14 yards per catch, a couple of first downs for the Houston Texans, which is exactly what they needed. Dalton Schultz continued to, be good. 9 targets, 6 catches, 51 yards, 8.5 yards per catch. He was solid for the Houston Texans. But when I look at how Houston got to the victory on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans, a team that I think fought well. Cam Ward made a couple of throws late in the game. The secondary for Houston, we talked about it a little bit on the squad show. Late in some of these games, especially the closer games, they give up some of these bigger plays downfield. But when I look at how Houston was able to get the win, it boils down to this. Danielle Hunter, sack and a half on a day. Tommy Togiai got in on the action, and he also had a big run stop at one point during the game. Will Anderson with a sack on the game, 2 tackles for loss. The defensive line for the Houston Texans won them the game. As much as I want to talk about Houston rushing the ball for 3.3 yards per carry, 75 total yards on the ground, right? That's a nasty number. They just had 5.9 last week against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's a nasty number to look at. I cannot ignore 58 rushing yards by Tennessee. 3.4 yards per carry. And if you remove Cam Ward's rushing yards, and he's not, and I talked about this on a crossover show, my every day has heard me say this, he's not a running quarterback. I want guys to understand this, just because, he's not a running quarterback. He picked up 33 yards. If you eliminate that, you're looking at 14 carries for 25 yards. Yeah. The Texans defensive front control the game. The Texans defensive front made the game what it was for Houston and not allow for the Tennessee Titans to go 6-15 on third down. Not a good day in terms of being able to convert. And when they did convert, it was on long down situations where you're looking at missed tackles. You're looking at coverages, players in coverage that are not doing what we expect for them to do. But it wasn't easy for Tennessee at all. They stayed in the game. They fought through the game through adversity of their own, but it was not easy. And the Houston Texans, I think, did an amazing job just controlling the line of scrimmage and making it difficult for Cam Ward to get comfortable in their pocket. Extremely difficult for Tony Pollard in that running back room to have any type of impact on the game. So much so, we look at the rushing first downs, the first downs for Tennessee, 14 on the day, 10 came from passing, only 2 came from rushing. The other 2 came from penalties. That is how the Houston Texans won the game on Sunday. Those guys up front played with their heads on fire. Another week of just dominating up front for Danielle Hunter, and I'll get those pressures. We'll talk about that on the Tuesday show. That's how they came about. That's how that win came about for the Houston Texans. And that's going to have to be a theme for them as they get ready to take on Josh Allen in Buffalo, Kansas City, right? A team that has had their number. You look at down the stretch, the Chargers. This is what this team is absolutely going to need because it continues to look like their secondary is having issues. Derek Stingley hasn't been the healthiest, and I do think that one penalty on third down that they gave to Tennessee was a penalty on the Houston Texans. I thought that was a bad call, right? But consistently, this has been something that, hey, for Kalen Bullock and Kamara, you guys have had a good season. I'm not taking away the season that you guys have had. But there's been some lapses in the game late in some of these quarters that has led to teams being able to either stick around or have an opportunity to win the game. The Texans defensive line is amazing. And guys that don't get a lot of credit on that defensive front for Houston, we understand that we're going to talk about Danielle Hunter. We understand that we're going to talk about Will Anderson. But guys like Sheldon Rankins, Mario Edwards, like these guys consistently, Tommy Togiai, they consistently make plays in the run game, and it makes it easier on their elite edge defenders. Now, there's some observations from things that I saw from Houston that it made it hard for Houston to win the game. They won the game. We're happy that they won the game. Of course, you understand here on this show, I'm happy for them. But Tennessee ain't Thursday. Buffalo's Thursday. It gets real. And some of the things that we saw are either consistent issues or things that they have to clean up on to, control their destiny and make the playoffs. So more Locked On Texans talk on the opposite sides. Stay tuned. Stick around. We're talking Texans on this Victory Monday. Celebrating your Victory Monday could be more than just water cooler talk. My Texans won. Did your team win? It could be more than that. It could also be understanding that, hey, I can make some changes to my phone bill. And if you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your number and contacts. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnfl. A front payment required of $45. Limited time, new customer offer for the first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on a limited plan. Taxes and fees are extra. See Mint Mobile for additional details. Welcome back, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. Just some observations from Sunday's matchup. A win for Houston. This is a Victory Monday, no doubt about it. I think we should all celebrate that. The fact that Houston is now 500. But just some observation from things that made it hard. Before I get to that, Davis Mills, I think, for Houston with a critical and crucial 3rd and 16 throw to Nico Collins. Davis Mills has earned his money. Do I want to continue to see Davis Mills? No. And I think Tennessee's game, proves that, hey, you want to get your best guys out there to close out this streak this season. But Davis Mills, I think, earned his money for the year. 2-0 in games he started. That 3rd and 16 conversion throw to Nico Collins was, I think, perfect. A dot to beat cover 2. And so, hey, listen, shout out to Davis Mills. He did some things right. Now, the Houston Texans defense faced their own 3rd and 16, and they gave it up. And you also look at the pass to Tennessee's tight end. I can't pronounce his name at this time, so forgive me. Too often we are seeing some of these blunders, these errors, I don't know if it's a mental mistake, physical mistake, or what, but too often we're seeing some of these long conversions, 3rd down conversions happen for Houston, or just moments in the game where some of these playmakers for opposing teams on the offensive side of the ball, they're getting behind the Texans defense. Now, Houston's defense is set up to do, I think, a couple of things very well. The front half complements the back half, and the back half complements the front half, right? I think when you look at anything that may hinder Houston moving forward is the middle of that defense, and I'm going to make sure that we talk about that because I'm disappointed in one player, right? When coverage is good, that gives the Texans defensive line to really get after quarterbacks. When the front four is creating pressure, it can knock some of these quarterbacks off a little bit. Sometimes that may result into the turnover or just a bad throw. So we take that into account. But for Houston, when the game should have been put away defensively or offensively, right, and they were not able to convert, one thing that stood out to me from my conversation with Azeez Al-Shire last week is he mentioned Nico Ryan's challenges. Too often, there's been occasions, rather, where we've been on the field with a lead and the defense gave up points. Tampa Bay, Denver, right? That's happened. If you want to be the number one defense, make number one defensive plays. And if the Tennessee Titans offense were a 2% better, they may have won this game. They may have won this game. That last drive by Cam Ward, albeit impressive by the rookie quarterback, and I think he needed that moment for himself, can't allow those plays to be made if you are the number one defense. And Houston is the number one defense. But that is a problem. And during the stretch of their next couple of games, that can't happen. And it was 3rd and 17. The conversion was to Okoronkwo, the tight end for the Tennessee Titans. That was a problem. Another issue for Houston. 1 of 3 in the red zone. My goodness. Guys, that's not going to win against Buffalo. That's not going to win against Kansas City. That's not going to win against some of these teams that score points. So when you are in position to score points, you got to make the plays. 1 of 3 against Tennessee is inexcusable. That's a problem. That made it hard for Houston to win this game. Talk about pulling it out late. You miss field goal, or 1 missed field goal to start off the game. But if you convert on those red zone attempts, you're looking at an 8-point swing. So that Houston they got to figure out what they want their identity to be once they get inside the 20-yard line. That's a problem. A couple of weeks ago, here on this show, my everyday has heard me talk about this. The rookies versus the vets. Okay. Friday, D'Amico Ryans talked about taking the nameplate of rookies off these players, right? Okay. All right. So now, what I would like to find out is, what is the justification of having Jaylin Noel not out there, but having Christian Kirk out there? I'm sorry, guys. And Christian Kirk has had a hell of an NFL career, all things considered. From his time to Arizona to the year he was in Jacksonville, that first year he was their number one receiver. Too often, and I think he's a great guy, but too often this year, I leave these games and I ask myself, when I look at who contributed to the offensive success for Houston in games he's played, that matters. Too often I find myself asking, what has Christian Kirk done for Houston? I thought one of the better throws in David Smith's career was that dot to Christian Kirk on the opening drive. Drop of the drop by Christian Kirk. Beautiful throw. Got both feet in. Just dropped it. Then I'm looking at Christian Kirk's numbers for Houston. On the day for Christian Kirk, 4 targets, 1 catch, 6 yards. And I'm also looking at just the game logs for Christian Kirk. Last week, 3 targets, 1 catch, 3 yards. The week before that, 8 targets, 4 catches, 26 yards. The last impactful game for Christian Kirk was against Baltimore. That was a month ago. He missed time after that. You cannot sell me on Christian Kirk being out there anymore. Not as a wide receiver 2 and a wide receiver 3. And again, I don't have the snap count. I don't have the snap shares. Those numbers will come out. We can get a better look and gauge as to who was out there more. But he is not a part of your future. And for Houston, if you're going to go down, you kind of got to go down swinging. That change needs to be made. On top of, I have been the president of the Henry T Club. My everydayers know this. And I'm going to have to go ahead and say it. The front part of that defense does their job. Aziz does his job. EJ Speed, when he's out there, he typically does his job. It's been up and down, inconsistent for the safeties and the cornerbacks, the DB room altogether. And keep in mind, no Jalen Petrie on the day, but, they've done their job for the most part. I think we've seen a better version of Kalen Bullock this year. Even though the interceptions are not as high, as a player, he's better. But they've done their job. The missed tackles have become so inexcusable that I had to admit this. Houston needs to move on from Henry To'oTo'o on any down that's not first down. First down, you can trust him out there to some point. He'll make a play in the run game. But when it is time to make a play in coverage, out in space, or a one-on-one play, that's where it really gets bad. One-on-one plays for Henry To'oTo'o, we have constantly and consistently witnessed missed tackles. And those missed tackles have led to 3rd and long conversions, 4th and long conversions. If we look at what happened with Tampa Bay, you cannot trust him anymore. You can't trust him. And I think he's done some good things to this point in his career, but a change needs to be made. Christian Harris was out there today. He made a special team playout. I don't know where the trust level is between Harris and the coaching staff, but EJ Speed has played some good football. They got to make a change. When we come back, the confidence level in Houston right now we'll dive into more on today's show. The NBA season is back. NFL is in full swing. There's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, You can even combine your live bets into same-game parlays for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Continuing with today's conversation, I do want to follow up on some observations that really made it hard for the Houston Texans. A different offensive combination out there for Houston. We got Titus Howard over at right guard, Trent Brown at right tackle, Patterson over at left guard. Of course, Ursery out there at left tackle, Andrews in the middle. The edge of defenses hadn't created a lot of problems for Houston's offensive line consistently throughout this year. It's when a team has a dominant D tackle or defensive coordinators are assimilating what a dominant defensive tackle could cause. So we look at stunts and twists and making the offensive line here for Houston just confused. We also look at the issues that Jeffrey Simmons caused in his first game back after missing a couple of games. That's going to continue to be a problem for Houston until they just find an elite player. I think Cole Popovich has done a good job in his role this year, in his first year, but sometimes good coaching does not beat talent. You need talent, and when you can get talent along with good coaching, then that looks like a recipe for success for the Houston Texans. Now, the confidence level right now in Houston, I think, should be at a good spot, right? Are you confident in the fact that for the next couple of games, the Houston Texans take on Buffalo, Indy? It's going to be a game Houston absolutely needs to win. Kansas City and then Cardinals on the 14th of December. Are you confident that Houston can win one of those games, right? I think for Houston to have a shot, they got to go 2-1, right? Houston absolutely cannot go 0-3. But I think that they're going to make it very competitive and interesting against Indy. The game that really does scare me for Houston is Buffalo. Short week for Houston to get it turned around. Some of the guys was banged up. Dalton Schultz has been dealing with injuries all year. We saw Titus Howard leave, but he came back. But obviously the question right now is for Houston, what's the status on C.J. Stroud? And I do want to take time to shout out Seth Payne, who mentioned on Twitter today, for those who are wondering about how players like Stroud and Petrie might clear the concussion protocol in a short Thursday night football week with limited practices, the players can go through simulated contact sessions. So I think that's important, right? We look at that. Houston absolutely needs C.J. Stroud back to have any fight in this game, because if not, you're looking at Buffalo, who's been inconsistent in terms of being able to score the ball, but on the year, Buffalo has been a good offense. On the year, Buffalo is the number 2 offense in terms of yards per game on the season. In terms of points per game, Buffalo is a top 10 unit. They sit at 27.6. In terms of being able to run the ball, Buffalo, number 1 in the NFL. Buffalo scores points. Buffalo is a team that, and I'm saying this for a reason, guys, they convert on 44% of their third downs. Buffalo will make it difficult for Houston to win this game simply because you got to be able to score points. And field goals will not win you the game. And I'm going to tell you why that's a problem, because Houston doesn't have Kaimi Fairbairn to knock down a 50-yarder, right? The field goal kicker that they have now, he's not Fairbairn. He's not going to religiously knock down a 50-yarder. So this is going to have to be one of them weeks where Nick Caley is going to have to tell his family and friends, hey, guys, I'm not answering no phone calls. Not tonight, guys. I'm figuring out when my offense gets inside the 20-yard line, what is the best plan of attack against Buffalo? What's the best plan of attack for Buffalo? Because what we've seen from Nick Caley's offense, it's looked fairly good in the last several weeks between 25 and 25. Look, it's looked all right. When they get down into that 20 and that red zone is there, it becomes the dead zone for Houston too often. And I think that's, if you look at where the confidence level could be for Houston, anybody could circle that and say, against elite teams, they got to prove it. That's true. I mean, even against Tennessee, they had trouble, 1 or 3. And again, I look at the Christian Kirk drop. Woody Marks missed a block on 4th and 1, which resulted into a sack on Davis Mills. And maybe for Houston, you look at how advantageous is it for you guys just to line it up, spread it out when you get to the red zone. Now, if you want to implement the jumbo package and get Blake Fish out there between 25 and 25, I think that's great. Also, considering Houston does not have another tight end on his roster right now, at least not one that you can expect to help block on the outside. But outside of that, when you get down to that red zone, especially when you get down to the 10-yard line, spread it out. Insert Jaylin Noel, exit Christian Kirk. Dalton Schultz is out there. Nico Collins, Jaden Higgins, Xavier Hutchinson. Flip who you need to flip, but spread it out. That way, things are not as condensed, and I think that'll help your offensive line out a lot more. Because when those short yardage plays fail, it feels like they fail because it's too condensed, and the offensive line does not have enough to beat the defensive line or the linebacker that's leaking through. And because it's so condensed, you don't give your playmakers, especially your running backs, a lot of room to make a man miss in space. Not a lot of space. Not a lot of space created. It's a very important game on Thursday, and I want you guys to make sure that you listen to the Locked On Texans podcast throughout the week. Also, the Squad Show on Tuesday and Thursday night after the game. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Also, follow, subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texan fans across the nation, peace.